To my channel. This is Gen Z Finance. I'm an older Gen Z here on YouTube documenting my financial journey. Usually I do this by sharing my bi-weekly budgets and monthly updates using the software system YNAB or You Need a Budget. But today's video is a little bit different. I've made this beautiful presentation and I'm going to be sharing my story and what I've been doing with my investments since I've graduated college at the end of 2018. So, this is just a breakdown, a little bit of what I'll be talking about later in the video. The thing I did want to mention right off the top is I'm not a financial professional, so anything I say during this video is not what I recommend you do. It's just what I did or have done or plan on doing. And I'm also not going to be explaining what all of these investment vehicles are. I'm not going to be taking the time to explain the difference between an index fund or an ETF or a Roth IRA. I will be leaving a bunch of resources down below for pretty much everything I talk about. I'll be leaving some links down below in the description box, so definitely check that out if you have any questions. The reason I'm not explaining everything is, again, I'm not a financial professional, so I don't think you want me to be explaining all of these terms. And secondly, this video would be way too long because I already have a tendency to overthink and overtalk. So we're going to move right along with that disclaimer out of the way and talk a little bit about what my goals for investing are. So when I first began investing in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, I had no goals. I just knew it was something people did and recommended, and my focus was still kind of paying off the last of my debt. But I also did and still do have a slight panic of being penniless in old age or being in poverty in retirement. So that was definitely like, okay, I think I should do this because I don't want to like have no money when I retire. Now I've kind of grown from that because I've done a lot of research, a lot of deep diving into the personal finance community, and now my goals for investing is kind of just building a strong foundation and working towards F.I., which stands for financial independence. So I'm not going to be talking too much about F.I. or F.I.R.E. in this video. I'm actually planning on making a whole entire separate video that goes over all of my thoughts and what my plan is and what I'm targeting for F.I., but I might be mentioning it a couple times throughout this video. The important thing to note about what I mean by F.I. is just when I say, oh, I'm working towards F.I., just putting myself in a really strong financial situation so that I never have to worry about money again. That's kind of what you can assume I mean when I use that term, at least for this video. It might not be what everyone uses that term for, and it might be a term, in fact, I assume it's going to be a term that means a lot of different things to me throughout my life. But that's what I mean when I talk about it in this video. And definitely be on the lookout and make sure you subscribe so that you can get notified when I post my whole video on my thoughts and feelings about F.I.R.E. at a later time. So this is the overline and the timeline of my investing activities. So in 2019, I did no investing at all. My number one priority was paying off my $28,000 in student loans because I graduated at the end of 2018. My second priority was building up cash on hand and establishing an emergency fund because I started 2019 with $22 in savings, so I was kind of in a hot mess. And then if the way that I was accomplishing paying off my student loans and saving was mastering my budget and really understanding cash flow. And I think it's really important before anyone starts to heavily invest. Maybe, you're investing up to your company match in your 401k and that's it. But before you really start to heavily invest and put a lot of money into the stock market or to really anything that you're not going to be able to tap into very easily, I'm a big believer that you have to master your cash flow and really understand what is coming in and out of your accounts with your money every single month. And the fourth thing that I really wanted to do in 2019 was just gain confidence, not even specifically about investing, but just money in general, because I definitely did not have that at the beginning of 2019. Really, it says lean there, but I meant to say learn a lot and establish a game plan for 2020, which I definitely did. At the end of 2019, I had paid off $17,000 in student loans, and so at the beginning of 2020, I decided that that was a good point for me to start investing. And I just began easily with investing in my company 401k up to the match, with that, which at that time I needed to invest 5% to receive 4% from them. And I was making $15.50 at this time, so it was not a lot of money being invested, but I did it, and I'm pretty sure that just went straight into like a retirement date fund. I didn't touch it much, and I did that for a couple of months. Then at the beginning of Q2 of 2020, I got a new job, and I increased my income from the $1,550 I was being paid to the $60,000 a year that I'm at currently. So with that, I increased my 401k to 15%. So I wasn't maxing it out or anything, but it was a big increase. I also opened an HSA and started investing in that, and I invested my Roth. I started investing in a Roth IRA as well. So Q2, lots of big moves. Same thing in Q3. In Q3, I became unofficially debt-free. I will be leaving a link up at the top of this video if you're interested in that. But that allowed me to increase my 401k by 4%. I started contributing to a Roth 401k at that point. And then everything else kind of stayed the same. I continued to invest in my HSA and IRA, but I did go ahead and open up my brokerage account using M1 Finance. So with Q4, it is currently late October of 2020, and we're just going to stay the course for the rest of this year. I'm really just taking more time to learn and kind of get my money mindset right. I'm increasing my cash on hand a little bit because I expect to hit 2021 really, really hard with the investing, and I want to make sure I feel really comfortable with the amount of cash that I have access to. And I'm trying to figure out and get a sense of what I want my ideal asset allocation to be moving forward. So this is my current setup as of, like I said, late October of 2020. I have 6 main accounts. The traditional 401k and the Roth 401k are automatically, set up, the money deducted from my paycheck before I even see it by my company. Together, I do fit 19% into that. Then I have an HSA, which I max out, so hitting that $3,500 goal for 2020, and I put in $335 a month for that. And then I have my Roth IRA, which I also max out at $6,000 a year, $500 a month. And that is automatically set up to pull from my checking account and then be invested once a month. I have my brokerage account, which I mentioned. This is varied. I don't have a set amount that I put into this account every month or on a specific schedule at all. And whenever I do decide to invest in this, it's just completely manual. So far, I've only done $200 this year, but I was really excited that I, opened the account and contributed anything to the brokerage account. And then my last account is something called a FICA alternative plan, which I have access to through my part-time job because I do work, I guess, for a city or state, I don't even know if it's a city or a state government employer. So I get a FICA alternative plan that is pre-tax, and it's 7.5% of my paycheck is automatically deducted and invested for me. And you can see here I have a mix of tax treatments. So I have the traditional 401k and then the FICA alternative plan. Those are pre-tax, or they're tax deferred, so I won't get taxed on them until I withdraw that money, hopefully much further down the road. Then I have my Roth accounts that I can withdraw from tax-free when appropriate. And then my HSA is a mix of both because I don't get taxed on the money that I contribute into it, and if I use it correctly and use it on the right things, I will not get taxed when I take the money out and spend it. Again, there's an asterisk next to that HSA, and there are lots of loopholes and things like that, so make sure you check the links down below if you are interested in learning more about what all of these terms mean. So there's a lot of reasons why I have these accounts. A couple of them are, these are company benefits. My 401k, my alternative plan are company benefits. With my HSA, I have an HDHP, which stands for a health or high deductible health plan. So that is a kind of benefit of that health plan. And I also get employer contributions into that HSA. But the main reason I have the account structured the way I do is just for taxes. I have 5 out of the 6 of those accounts are tax advantaged, which is really good. You want as many tax advantaged funds and accounts as you can. And then I also have a good mix of tax treatment. Like I said, I have some pre-tax accounts, which means, I'll get a tax break now. I have some Roth accounts, which means I'll get a tax break later when I take it out. And then even though the taxable brokerage account is not tax advantaged because, I pay money on the funds when I'm putting them in, I get taxed, with the growth, and I'll get taxed when I withdraw the money. It does give me full control of being able to take out the money pretty much whenever I want. And there are things with, dividends and capital gains. Those are taxed differently than regular W-2 income. So, and they're taxed more favorably. So again, links down below, but it's definitely something that I'm keeping in my mind with the taxable brokerage account, that I will get some tax advantage if you build and invest the correct things into that account. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is the IRA and the HSA I love to have because it's really encouraging to be able to say I maxed out those accounts. I can't quite yet max out my 401k because that's like a $19,500 max, but I can max out the relatively lower $6,000 and then $3,500 maximums for the IRA and HSA. So that's really fun. Here's the current breakdown of my invested assets. I currently have $13,370 invested, and about half of that is in my 401k. I didn't break it down between my Roth and my traditional, but the majority of that is my Roth. Little more than 1/3 is in my Roth IRA at just under $5,000. And then with my HSA, it's at 12%. And then my brokerage and FICA alternative plan combined make less than 3% of my total assets, or my total invested assets. Because if you look at my total net worth and all of my assets, including the cash that I have that's not invested, so this is just in a high yield savings account and in my checking account, my cash actually makes up a little bit more than half of my assets. So it's definitely not super ideal long term, but I'm really happy with where it is actually at right now. Since I've only really been investing for 1 year, I expect my cash on hand to shrink as the years continue and more money is put into investments and they grow at a exponentially, greater rate. So by the end of 2021, I would like to see my cash on hand actually be closer to 40 to maybe 35% of my total assets. I don't know if it will get much lower than that because I do plan to continue to contribute to my cash. But again, hopefully I'm putting more money into my investments and hopefully that grows at a much higher rate. So it just, by default becomes a bigger portion of my assets. So briefly, here's where I invest with my company 401k with Fidelity and then my HSA investable account with TD Ameritrade. Those are set up by my company. I don't really have much of a say with that, but the fees are good and I actually really enjoy both of their websites, so I'm happy with where that money is being kept right now. And then I selected Vanguard for my IRA and then M1 Finance for my brokerage account. So the big reveal, here's my current asset allocation. J.L. Collins, who is the author of The Simple Path to Wealth, which is one of my favorite investment books and maybe just books, period, he would probably be very happy with some of my decisions because I am down here on the right. You can see my breakdown in just my, or not the right, the left. You can see my breakdown in just my 401k, and it is 95% stocks and 5% bonds. So I am only 23, so I am pretty aggressive, and I'm really happy with where I'm at now. I plan to slowly over the next 7 years, so by the time I'm 30, I plan to slowly get that bonds from 5% to maybe about 10%. And then in my 30s, I think I'll shoot for a bond allocation closer to 15 or 20%, but I'm not really too sure on that yet, and that is so far in the future. I'm just focused on keeping my allocation pretty aggressively right now, and then slowly, increasing how much I'm buying in bonds by 1 to 2% every couple of years for these next 7 years. And then on the upper and bottom right-hand side, you can see my asset allocation overall, and this is according to Personal Capital, which I use to track all of this breakdown. JL Collins would be happy with me as well because I am almost exclusively in US stocks. And while I appreciate that that's his belief, it is something I definitely want to increase my international exposure, both to international stocks and international bonds. So I think I would like to see my international stocks take up, 15% of my total stock allocation, maybe 15 to 20%. And again, I'm still trying to determine what my ideal asset allocation is, but I'm definitely going to just focus on, in 2021, making sure I'm purchasing more international index or ETFs so that I can increase that, because I think it's just, in my personal opinion, it's just smart to have a little bit more diversification, even though lots of US companies are international and global companies like JL Collins argues. I would just like to have a bigger net, I guess. So this is how it is right now. And then here's what I actually specifically invest in. So 99% of my investments are in index funds or ETFs. Up on the top here, you can see what the breakdown is in my 401k specifically. So it is 95% stocks and 5% bonds, like we talked about before. And then that 95% stocks, or the 100%, is broken down with 85% in S&P 500, and then I do have 5% in a small cap and 5% in a mid cap, and that just allows me to get a little bit of some of the smaller companies that aren't quite yet in the S&P 500. So it's bigger risk, but I did kind of limit myself to 5% in both of those, and that way I'm kind of getting all of the companies like I would get in a total stock market index, like I have in my VTSAX that I keep in my Roth IRA. So in the purple where you see I've highlighted VTSAX, that's what I have in my Roth IRA. It's currently all VTSAX, which is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Fund. I don't know the exact name of it, but pretty much it tracks all of the companies that are on the US stock market, instead of just, what's in the S&P 500 or whatnot. Highlighted in red, those two ETFs are what I keep in my HSA account. So the VOO is the S&P 500, which I think I have one share of, and then the VTI is the total stock market ETF, which is very similar to the VTSAX index fund. It's just an ETF. Again, links down below if you want to know more about that difference. And then in black is what I have in my brokerage account. I do have some of my international stocks in my brokerage account. So I did want to mention I do have $100, which I think makes up like 0.3% of my total net worth, in 3 individual stocks. I decided to just randomly do that in M1 Finance, split 3 ways in between 3 companies that I either believe, I kind of believe in them all, or at least hope they continue to do well, and I use or see in my everyday life. I did not do any research. I don't pick individual stocks. I can't even confirm with you if I will put more money into these specific stocks or any individual stocks in the future. But I've decided as long as individual stocks make up no more than 2% of my total net worth, which at this time they make 0.3%, that I'm totally okay with having some individual stocks. I just think it's a way for me to, have fun or do whatever. So I do have individual stocks. Don't worry, I'm not a day trader or anything like that. Like I said, I do follow JL Collins a lot, and he would hate these individual stocks, but I have them, and I'm okay with having $100 out of the $13,000 that I have invested, and the $30,000 in net worth total be there. All right, so we're almost done. I just wanted to briefly talk about, the future. For the most part, a lot of this stuff will be the same moving forward for me. Like I said, I'm still trying to determine my perfect or ideal allocation, but I'm trying not to let perfect be the enemy of good. I think I have a pretty strong foundation, and wherever I want my allocation or my index funds or whatever I want to change in the future, I think I've given myself a pretty strong foundation that I can easily get there over time. I do want more international exposure, and something I didn't mention too much about is I do want to get more of that alternative investments like REITs or just real estate investments through that way into my, my total invested assets. There we go. I also expect, like I mentioned, to have my cash assets shrink as a percentage of my total assets as my invested assets grow. And then more specifically, we'll definitely see some changes, particularly in 2021, I already know, in the specific percentages and amounts that would be going into, for instance, my 401k, my HSA, my IRA. All of that will probably change year to year, either as I get pay increases or as the IRS adjusts maximums that you can contribute to these accounts. So I'm going to be posting a video probably in the next 2 months, which will be a review of my 2021 game plan and give you those exact amounts that I hope to contribute into my tax advantage accounts and my brokerage account. So be on the lookout for that, and make sure you subscribe down below for that. But that will be this video. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I think I heard myself talking really fast, but I had a lot that I wanted to cover, and I didn't want this video to be like 45 minutes long. So if this is your first video of mine on Gen Z Finance, I do my bi-weekly budgeting. I have a couple of videos on how to use YNAB or my favorite features on YNAB. I do my monthly spending and saving reviews. I also do monthly net worth updates. I also like to look at my quarterly spending and do quarterly reviews and check-ins. And then coming up, near the end of this year, I will be doing a yearly review and going over some of my goals, setting up goals for 2021, all of that fun end of year wrap-ups. I'll be posting videos on that. And then I will also be posting some videos about my FI and investing journey specifically. Those will be coming more because this is kind of like my first one that I've actually posted on my channel. So if any of that sounds interesting, make sure that you're subscribed down below. Like I said, a lot of links down below, so make sure you check out some of those links to some of my favorite resources and the things that I've used to determine all of this and build my money mindset. And down below, leave me a comment. What is going on with your investments for this year? Was there a specific game plan that you had at the beginning of the year that you've kept? Have you changed a lot of stuff throughout the year like I did? Are you new to investing? Do you hope to get into investing in the future? Let me know down below. I'm really, really interested in my viewers' thoughts on all of this. So I hope y'all stay safe and healthy, that y'all have a good year, day, month, week. That was all out of order, but I hope everything is going good for you. Bye!